your fangirl Tally, and it's time for another Editor Hubby request. Now this one is from Square Table Gaming, Elden Ring lore, Midra, the man who endured the flame. Alright, let's go for it. I love these things.
How does one become the Lord of Frenzied Flame? We thought we understood this process. You have to accept the flame, be taken in the grasp of the three fingers, and allow it to flow through every fiber of your being. You cannot accept this gift while armored, lest you end up like the festering fingerprint Vike, touched by madness, but incapable of wielding it to its true potential. Heed the words of Shabriri and your finger maiden, and you can burn the world to the ground, cleansing the land of all. However, it seems this is not the only path to lordship. While exploring the land of shadow, we can find our way to a place that has not only been touched by the frenzied flame, it has succumbed to it entirely. The eyes of animals are glowing yellow. Strange creatures with heads of swollen grapes roam the swamp. And just off in the distance lies a manor, where another touched by the flame lives in complete agony. Today, we will be exploring the Abyssal Woods, and the man who resides in this place, the sage known as Midra. Welcome back to Elden Lore, our weekly series diving into the lore of the people, places, and bosses of the Land of Shadows. Whether this is your first time finding the channel, or you're a long-time subscriber, thank you for sharing some of your day with us. If you end up digging our content, please consider subscribing, as we plan on thoroughly exploring every inch of Shadow of the Erdtree, and we're always willing to take commenter suggestions for lore topics. We also have a Discord where you can hang out with other FromSoft fans and talk about your favorite games and theories. Whether you subscribe or not, your viewership is always enough for us, and with that said, let's get back to the story at hand. In order to reach the Abyssal Woods, we need to pass through the Darklight Catacombs, an area hidden away below the Shadow Keep. While this area is associated with Mesmer and the horrific atrocities he's committed against the Hornsent, once we reach the end of this place, we're challenged by Jori, the Elder Inquisitor, and a Hornsent. It seems as though both parties had a vested interest in no one new exploring this tainted land, far below the keep. Once we make our way past this last line of defense between the outside world and the Abyssal Woods, we begin exploring the area. But there's a hiccup. Torrent is too scared to meet our call, and he refuses to join us as we explore these woods. A strange occurrence to be sure, but we've only scratched the surface of what makes this place so terribly wrong. As we explore, we find more Inquisitors patrolling the place, as well as animals with eyes of frenzy. They don't attack us on sight, but the fact that they're going about their day-to-day while afflicted with the flame is concerning, to say the least. The closer we get to the manse at the edge of the woods, the more dangerous the road becomes. Along the path we see these hideous monsters, with heads like so many ripened Shabriri grapes. Yes. And should we engage them in battle, we quickly learn they're immune to our attacks. Their eyes emit madness, and they carry a staff in one hand, which can be used to ensnare us, draining our life through the power of the frenzied flame. If we knock their attack away at the right moment, we can counter, making it possible to kill these things, and one of them will drop the Aged One's exaltation. This item is described as a talisman depicting the exaltation of the aging untouchable, whose head resembles a sprig of ripe grapes. Raises attack power when madness is triggered in the vicinity.
This is so
Gift
disgusting.
your madness to
never
our Lord.
gets...
Bless our brethren with grapes. Take care that they fully ripen.
Never gets any easier to
This
hear
tells
or
us what
see.
these creatures are, the aging untouchables, and their heads truly are large ripened grapes.
Eyeballs.
Given how long these things must have been down here, I think it's fair to assume that this is the fate of any who succumb to madness and are unable to become the new Lord. Eventually, the grapes envelop their very being. We can tell these enemies are just around the corner whenever we pick up a winter lanternfly, a winged insect carrying a dangling frenzied flame grape, material used for crafting items.
Wow.
flies lazily around the abyssal forest, said to be heralds of the aging untouchable. On seeing these, the wise know to stay well clear of that place. Their description tells us the wise know to stay clear of these flies, but I'd argue everyone, at this point, knows to stay clear of the woods in general.
Right.
When we reach the manse off in the distance, we learn that its owner's name is Midra. If we examine the map of the Abyssal Woods, it tells us a bit about this man. At the east of the Gravesite
I think I
Plain,
say this
a
every
thick
time.
forest
It's always
sprawls at
so
the depths of the
freaking
ravine
beautiful and
that is
so
untouched
freaking
even by
gross.
sunlight.
Messed
Known
up.
as the Sanctum of Sage Midra, and is a region forbidden by the Hornsent. So now we know, the Sage Midra studied here, and the area is now forbidden by the Hornsent. This explains why within the manor, we're surrounded by Inquisitors and Hornsent Knights, who wish to stomp us into the ground. Unlike with other areas though, it's not simply a matter of them seeing an enemy and attacking. They are specifically trying to keep us from disturbing someone, lest we bring about a dark fate for the land. When we first enter Midra's home, we're greeted by a specter of a former servant who tells us, "I welcome you, O uninvited guest, but I must warn as you venture in. Heed the words of our great master, Midra. Approach not the madness, lest you succumb." We can see as we explore that the halls of this great manor have seen better days. His title of sage is evident as Midra seems to have collected enough books to fill several libraries, gaining knowledge beyond what we could possibly infer. However, these books are now
Random dead
destroyed,
body.
burned to a crisp. We can see plainly who's responsible for the state of the manse as we make our way through. Many Hornsent Inquisitors holding candlesticks roam the halls, as if they are the last line of defense against something terrible. We can find another spirit who says to us, "I beg you stop. Haven't I taken enough? Are we not brethren, common in our line? And yet you offer only cruelty. I ask, what crime did great Midra commit?" What's interesting about this is that both spirits appear to be Hornsent, while the portrait of Midra we've all come to know shows that he's not one of their people. It's possible he was even a shaman, but his title as sage likely kept him from the same tortures the rest of his people endured. Still, we press on hoping to meet the Lord of the Manor, and along the way, we uncover more clues about what has happened to allow the frenzy to spread. We find a mad craftsman's cookbook, which tells us it is a record of crafting techniques left by a craftsman who served Midra, master of the manse, and Nanaya, its lady. His eyes were burned by the flame of frenzy. We can also find swollen grapes, an eyeball of frenzied flame that is swollen from within, material used for crafting items, exceedingly rare to find, marked with fingerprint burns, proof of having been touched directly by the three fingers embrace.
Still super
Lastly,
gross.
we find tools known as surging frenzied flame, which are spirit grave stone burned by frenzied flame. Spirits are eternal, and yet frenzied flame melts them away regardless. No wonder the Hornsent forbid the flame's use. Each item gives us a new piece to the puzzle. First, Midra had a wife,
I love
or
libraries.
lady,
Do you guys
known
love
as Nanaya,
libraries? Let me know.
likely the woman standing beside him in his portrait. Then, that those who worked for Midra clearly fell under the influence of the flame, their eyes turning to swollen grapes. Although the idea that they were touched directly by the three fingers is a little suspect, as it would mean that the three fingers must have resided somewhere nearby before being moved beneath Lanedale. And now we know why Torrent and the Hornsent were so terrified of the flame to begin with. It has the power to burn away spirits. Torrent himself is a spirit steed, and the Hornsent revered spirits, meaning there could be no greater blasphemy than to have them burned to nothing.
Right.
At this point, we've likely heard the screams of Midra himself, warning us to stay away from him.
Leave. Now. Come no closer. No closer, I say. The madness wells.
Our Tarnish knows better, though. This man is yet another enemy to fall at our blade, and we make our way to him, as he admonishes us for approaching.
Depths of your foolishness!
This weakened form is easy enough for us to fell, but after we do, the true battle begins.
Enough. I have endured more than enough.
That whole theory changes things. If killing the soul...
I ask you forgive me, dearest Nanaya.
goes against everything the Horned Sense believe in, and letting the flame burn him would have been an abomination. He would never meet her again. Could never be with her. Be no spirit. Be nothing. Letting the frenzied flame take him. Am I misunderstanding something? Am I taking it the wrong way? Dude.
Midra, upon removing the weapon holding him to the ground from his very
lie.
head, has become a lord of frenzied flame, though an incomplete one, and he's ready to wield the full might of the flame against us. What ensues is a difficult battle, one that we will, eventually, come out on top of. Upon defeating him, we gain his remembrance, which sheds light on his history. As the golden barbs inflicted eternal agony upon him, Midra held fast to Nanaya's entreaty. Endure. The word was a curse. The possible rewards for trading in his remembrance tell us more. The Great Sword of Damnation is described as a golden greatsword that once pierced the body of Midra, master of the Manse, used by the Hornsent in the execution of a damnation like no other. The barbs that pierce the victim from within wind gently around the blade. And the incantation we can gain is known as Midra's Flame of Frenzy. Incantation in praise of Midra, Lord of Frenzied Flame. The Lord of Frenzied Flame shall take their torment, despair, their affliction, every sin, every curse, all melted away. Yet Midra, like others before him, was too weak to become a lord.
Wow.
Knowing this, we can start to paint a picture of what happened to this man, and how he came to be under the influence of the flame. But first, let us take a moment to address the Lady of the Manse, Nanaya. We can find what remains of Nanaya as we explore these grand libraries. Her corpse sits alone, clutching something very tightly. The item, Nanaya's torch, is described as a torch made by attaching a dying flame of frenzy to a small spinal column. In a distant land, in an age long past, was born a man who failed to become the Lord of Frenzied Flame. All that remains of him is cradled gently by Nanaya. When Midra removes the Great Sword of Damnation from his head, he has no neck, so we can assume that this small spinal column actually belongs to Midra himself. And after he was pinned to the ground by the Hornsent, Nanaya took this piece of her lord with her, after asking him to endure the pain and flames, so that the Lord of Frenzied Flame would not burn the land to the ground. It would seem Nanaya met her fate in the Manse the same as all the other servants. But the true tragedy is that it seems from their portrait that Nanaya may have been pregnant before this punishment was passed down. And there's nothing that tells us what may have happened to her child. Some speculate that this child may have been Marika, but I'm not quite convinced. I won't discredit this theory as it's fun to speculate, but I believe if this were the case, we'd have been given something more to confirm it.
True.
That said, the mystery of Nanaya's pregnancy cannot truly be solved. It's another tragedy in a world full of
tragedies. This game
While many have speculated that Nanaya was a deathbed companion,
tale of tragedy,
or possibly a maiden of the three fingers leading Midra to madness, I don't believe this is the case. Anything we read of Nanaya paints her in a much more benevolent light, as a lady who cared for her lord, and wanted nothing more than for him to stay strong, so that he might spare the world of the fate of the frenzied flame. As for Midra, it's clear that the Horn-Sent Inquisitors are the ones who put a stop to his transformation by piercing his skull with the Great Sword of Damnation. But what got them to this point? His servants and colleagues in the Manse seemed to be Horn-Sent as well, so I don't believe this was a matter of prejudice. We also see how his servants were tortured and had no idea why any of this was happening. I have a theory on how this situation started, and it comes back to a torn diary page we can find during our investigation. A discarded page ripped from a diary, bearing a passage written in a tremulous hand. I touched him, but only once. When he thrust his staff in my face, I brushed it aside. It was then that I touched him, the aging untouchable. Not only does this letter tell us how to fight the aging untouchables, I believe it also gives us insight into how Midra became a victim of the flame. The Abyssal Woods have clearly been dealing with the effects of the flame for some time. So what if Midra was not the initial cause? We know from Ymir's questline that the fingers are fumbling for meaning the same as everyone else. So perhaps this land was touched long ago, and Midra took up residence here to study the flame and look for a way to stop its effects. This would explain how the sage working alongside the Horn-Sent would eventually be attacked by their inquisitors. If it was his job to stop the flame through his research, and he instead unwittingly inherited it through his study of the aging untouchables, that would get the Inquisitor's attention.
Oh, wow.
Suddenly, a man who was once seen as an asset to the Horn-Sent was now nothing more than another heretic.
That would
one that they needed to put a stop to.
Be so messed up! Way more messed up than my original
Midra
theory,
had any
guys!
grand plans of becoming the Lord of Frenzied Flame and bringing the world to its knees. I believe this scholar simply fell too deep into his studies, uncovering cosmic truths, and he got careless. In his interactions with those wholly controlled by the flame, he too became tainted, and rather than accept his fate, he chose to heed the words of his love, to endure the burning of the frenzy, and instead keep it locked deep within him for as long as he could. In this time of enduring the flame, Midra would grow weaker and weaker, essentially making it impossible for him to become the true Lord of Frenzied Flame. Ultimately, our Tarnish coming to the Manse and allowing him to release the flame was a mercy on poor old Midra. Not only could he finally let go of his pain and suffering, but we could see to it that this incomplete
This
Lord
is
never rose to
heartbreaking,
power,
guys. Why?
effectively putting
Editor
Midra's
Hubby, why do you
spirits
do
rest.
this to me?
That is, if it wasn't burned up by the very flame he kept at bay for so long. Thank you for joining us for this exploration of Midra and the Abyssal Woods. What do you think of our analysis of this area and the Lord and Lady of the Manse? Do you believe Midra was an innocent bystander, undone by his own attempts to free this land from the flame? Or do you think he was seeking this power?
I don't
Was
know
Nanaya
anymore.
truly a lady of good standing with a caring heart for her lord? Or do you believe she had darker intentions? Do you believe this Lord of Frenzied Flame has any ties to Marika? And if so, why do you think that? Let us know your thoughts and theories in the comments. And please be detailed, because I am very curious. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell, and set notifications to all so you never miss out on any of our lore dives. We look forward to seeing you again for more Elden lore.
I don't know what to think anymore. Wow. I've got so many different, fan theories running through my head right now. It's incredible. And... and who is their baby? Frack! Okay. Okay. You guys know what to do. Comment below. Let me know. What did you think? What? You've just been a researcher this whole time and gotten the raw end of the deal? Man. Please, guys, remember to leave a like, and if you're not already a fellow fan geek, please subscribe to our channel. Doing both of those really helps us out, and we appreciate it so, so much. If you leave a comment, we read every single one of them and try to respond as much and quickly as we can. Remember to hit that notification bell with your notifications turned on so that you know every time we drop a new video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.